want to be a master Pokemon. Well, that's not this episode. That's next week. But I am Wrestling Chris G, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Every Pokemon Episode Ever podcast. And on the other line with me is my GS brother, the one that you can't transfer or take anywhere. It's good old Dougie Fresh. Dougie, my man, how you doing?
I would like to sincerely apologize to all headphone users or anybody that happens to listen to us on their commute. We're going to get comments.
Yeah, we are. Because people love to get behind that keyboard when I get loud.
And it's going to be all on you because I'm just sitting here minding my own damn business.
Yeah, but this is the official last Jason Page theme song episode, bro. So Jason Page has made it to 85 episodes, 85 intros that he has been a part. Well, it might be a little less than that because of the band episodes early on, but nonetheless, this is the last one. This is episode 85 in the Kanto region, well, in the Orange Islands now because we just touched down. But it's called Pokéball Peril, or translated from Japanese, Southern Pokemon and the GS Ball.
It's a little on the nose, isn't it?
just a little on the nose. What's this week's episode about? They go and meet some Southern Pokemon and go after that GS Ball, and Brock gets a hard on for the professor.
No, he doesn't get it.
Pika.
Oh man, sponsors for this podcast are gonna hear this episode and be like, "Yeah, we're cutting our support now." All right, but how are you doing, bro?
I'm good. It's April in the Midwest is all I can tell you. I don't understand it. I don't pretend to understand it. The other day there was snow flurries. Actually, more than flurries.
I was about to say that snow stuck on the ground. I woke up and there was snow on the ground in my roof. The roof to my home was completely covered in snow.
I thought you were going to say the roof of my home caved in.
No. We got a brand new roof on this house. It better not cave in.
Yeah, so I can't understand it. I've given up trying to understand it. It's supposed to be like in the 70s this weekend.
In the 80s, bro. We got 80s weather coming on Saturday.
That means it's gonna fucking monsoon or something.
Yeah, I know.
So yeah, it's we're are we officially into spring, or is that next week, or whatever, or has it been and it just hasn't felt like it? I don't know.
I think spring was actually, because we're recording this on April 19th. I think spring happens on Easter, doesn't it? You spring forward? Actually no. That happened a while ago because the clocks changed a while ago. A couple weeks ago.
Oh,
So yeah, we're in spring, but Illinois, as I was telling one of my friends the other day, who's out of state, I was like, yeah, we kind of skip spring, and we've been skipping spring the past few years here in Illinois. We go straight from winter to hot weather, and then we get fall just to piss everybody off and say, okay, get outside and rake your leaves. and then as soon as the leaves fall, we get snow again. So it's just I'm ready to move from Illinois, bro. Are you ever gonna move out of Illinois? You think so?
It might come to that at some point, but I can't see that far in the future right now.
So But yeah, this week's episode is Pokeball Peril. It premiered February 11th, 1999, and here in the States, January 15th, 2000, everybody. So, and as we said, this is the final Jason Page theme song. Hats off to you, Jason Page. Thank you. Thank you for coming on to our show and full support out there for what you're doing. You're killing it out there. Ooh, you okay?
Nope, dying.
You're killing it out there, Jason Page, when it comes to Pokemon cards and people buying your premium sets and everything. So if any of you haven't, here's a free plug for our listeners. Go and Google Jason Page for his website. I would say jasonpage.com, but I'm not sure if he actually owns that domain. But if you Google him, he has a whole shop on his website. You can get autographed gear. You can send your stuff over to him, and he will autograph it for you and all of that good stuff. So go ahead and send your stuff on over. I know last week when we had our premium Patreon guest Grant on, I mentioned that I would possibly reach out to the new theme song singer that did the second theme song to Pokemon. So I'm gonna do that. I mean we're recording this literally after right after the Grant episode, and I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna find out who did that song, Doug, and I'm gonna get him on this show. Well, I'm gonna try to get him on this show. I can't say I'm going
Well, you've got a bit of an ace up your sleeve, I mean, because you can reach out and as long as they respond, you can be like, well, we did get Jason Page on for an episode.
Yeah. So
So we've got a bit of a streak going.
yeah, for real. And hopefully we get other guests on this upcoming season of Pokemon as well. And I will be doing a little bit more digging this season, and because it seems like the world's finally picking back up. People are ready to start doing things, get back out there, and what better way to get back out there than to get on the Every Pokemon Episode Ever podcast, the number one
You
Pokemon podcast out there, everybody.
where you technically don't have to go anywhere.
Literally, you just need a computer or a phone.
Or a phone, exactly.
So yeah, everybody. What better way than to get on the best Pokemon podcast out there, the Every Pokemon Episode Ever podcast? So there you go. I'm gonna
Yeah.
plug us as the best. We're the best, Doug. We're the
Yeah.
best.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Enough boasting and and slapping our asses. All right. You ready to jump on into on this episode, Doug, that Pokemon.com is listing as episode 29 of season 2.
Yeah, every show out there has a new theme song randomly at episode 30.
For real. So, all right, everybody. So, we start this week's episode with a full recap. Well, basically, a brief recap of last week's episode with the blimp in peril. The blimp is going down. Ash was dumb enough to run to the front of the blimp and press the blimp down, and then they just crashed. And I didn't even notice this when we when we were reviewing. I'm just now thinking about this, Doug. Um, Ash ran to the front of the blimp
Mhm.
when it crashed, and it was still crashing forward. And we go back into the blimp. Ash is in the back. How the hell did that happen? Can you do that math for me, Doug?
Well, I mean, I listen to a couple other podcasts that deal with like the ins and outs of animation and in terms of like sitcoms and TV shows and stuff. And a common thing that comes up is, oh, there must have been a mix up in like translation or in description of the like to the animators themselves.
Gotcha.
Because like the the art directors will send over, the scenes that need to be animated, and they'll have notes or descriptions of what needs to be in each scene or what have you. And pardon me, the animators can only draw what's on like the notes, and they're not trying to have to do two or three passes per go. They're trying to get it move. They're trying to move it.
And there's
Because
no there's no time to go back and edit this.
right. So if you leave like notes that can be taken like verbatim, it's taken verbatim, and then it's up to the the it's up to the directors and what have you to be like, oh, we've got to work around this because we were too literal with our note here, and then so something as simple as you know a scene after they've crashed, Ash being in the wrong end of the plane, and they're also they're animating this in 99 be released in 2000 or whatever. They're not anticipating somebody being able to sit here on a laptop or a phone and being able to pause it in 2022 and go, oh, they fucked up here.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. They're like, okay, we'll put this out on a VHS tape, and they can do whatever they want. And if they want to pause this, you might fuck up your VHS tape with that little string that used to be in there. Have your VCR eat your video.
Your tape. Yeah.
So, all right. So we are officially on the Orange Islands, everybody, and our trio is walking what looks like on the coast of a beach. And they're like, Ash is like, oh, it's so hot. And of course it's hot because his ass has a big ass backpack. He's wearing a t-shirt with a jacket over it and long john pants and a hat. And it doesn't look like he's had a haircut in God knows how long. And Misty's like, "What are you talking about, Ash?" And she's like, "The weather's perfect." But of course, I think this was the writers poking fun because Misty is in short shorts. She's she has a crop top on, and she has Togepi held up against her, who is probably a little cooler than your average Pokemon. So that's probably cooling her off as well, and her hair is put up, so it's not all up in her face. So
Well, but to be fair, Pikachu's buck naked and he's sweating.
yeah, because Pikachu's dumb and doesn't want to get in a Pokeball where it can get cool.
That's fair. I can't argue that at all.
So, but of course, there's always a price to what Ash is saying, and he's like, Brock, maybe we should take a little swim. And he's like, we can have fun after we get that Pokeball. And Ash is like, okay. And Missy looks like she's like, so where is Professor Ivy's laboratory? I was about to say laboratory. I'm not. I'm in Dexter's laboratory. Where's Professor Ivy's laboratory anyway? Doug, I'm gonna have you take it from here because I'm going into a whole nother show that we're not even doing.
So they look off into the distance and they see, rows of houses, and they can see mountains off in the distance, and Pikachu's looking around and nobody has any idea, and we get the anime drop of sweat, and we get the big heavy sigh, and Pikachu's looking around, and then something something perks up Pikachu, and he points, and we see um a Pokemon Center off in
Oh,
the distance.
oh, weird. looking Pokemon Center. We haven't seen one that looks like this, right?
No, we haven't. It's like a hut, and you walk in, and it's an open air.
Yes.
So right there, it's different. And they walk in and they say, "Is anybody here?" And we see Chansey and a Nurse Joy. So right away, you've got the comforts of home. Um, you know, Joy, she's not in a typical nurse's outfit like the others. She's got like overalls. I mean, she does have the hat, and
Which is red.
it is, it is red. So maybe we've reset the color wheel because maybe they've run through the others. Um, and Ash and Misty are like, oh, some things never change, and Brock, it's a bit of a hard on. He doesn't quite. He's getting close, and
Oh man, hard censors on. Well, I can't. I don't censor that, but hard words in this episode.
yeah, no, we've established Brock is hard.
Oh, good one. All right, continue.
So Brock is like, it's a pleasure to make your acquaintance. Are you related to any of the other Nurse Joys? Um, and she's like, I'm the second cousin of the sister-in-law to the Joy in Saffron City, which is not a sentence I would have been able to rattle off if I didn't have the captions on, because that's very detailed. And she's like, have you ever been to Saffron City? And he's like, yes, it's beautiful, just as you are. And and Misty pulls Brock away by the ear, saying, looks like Ash isn't the only one that needs to cool down.
And then Ash comes over. He's like, "Could you tell us how to get to Professor Ivy's laboratory?"
Now, did you do that one on purpose?
I did.
Okay, I just, because sometimes you surprise me. Um, and she just points straight ahead, and she's like, it's right over yonder, basically.
Go straight out of the Pokemon Center and make the first left, and it's the big white building at the very end of the Bayview Road. You know, I don't know how you feel, Doug, but I I still to this day am very, very upset that this anime went to the Orange Islands and we never got this fun adventure in a video game. And I don't think they're ever going to, because at this point, I mean, they be taking steps back. But what the adventure that we're about to get into on these Orange Islands is so much fun. And the things that they can do, like they could probably do it nowadays with the technology they have, but you don't get your stereotypical gym badges and battles on these islands.
No,
And I want that in a video game form. I still to this day want that in a video game form.
like, couldn't it? It could very easily be DLC for Arceus, couldn't it?
I mean, it could, but even with Arceus right now, they're not in that part of the region. So I mean they have a Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee that I mean obviously we're not going to get any more updates to those games because it's been I think 3 or 4 years now that those games I think 3 years since those games
No, it hasn't been 3 years.
yeah because we had Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee, and then we have Brilliant Diamond um and
Shining
shine and
Pearl.
Shining Pearl. We have the Arceus. We have I'm forgetting something. And then we also have the Velvet game that's getting ready. Yeah, so yeah, about 3 years ago now, though.
Velvet.
Huh?
Velvet.
Isn't it called Velvet? I believe the new Pokemon. games are called. Let me see. New Pokemon game. I'm it's Scar oh, not Velvet. It's Scarlet and Violet. Sorry.
Violet.
Yeah.
Oh,
And we have Pokemon Snap. So yeah,
that's right. Bringing that back. That's right.
it's been quite a while because Let's Go came out before we even started this podcast, and we started this podcast. We've been doing this podcast for going on 2 years now. So yeah,
Fuck me.
I know we're getting old, bro. but but okay, so Doug, take it away from here because the part where I'm at is we're looking at Professor Ivy's white building.
So they walk in and they're immediately like, "Hello, is anybody home?" And they're looking around and it's an empty building. It's very spacious, but it's completely empty. And Pikachu's standing there, and all of a sudden Pikachu starts to tip, and Pikachu's gone. And you say, "Oh shit, he fell through the floor like last week." No, there's a hatch in the floor, and three little girls pop up. Um, they're all very similar in look. They have the same glasses, so it's very easy to infer that they're related. And they're like, "Well, who are you?" And
Yeah,
they're like,
because they just go and walk into freaking random houses uninvited. Well, I guess they
and
were. I guess they were kind of invited, weren't they?
well, yeah, I mean, in so much that Oak probably sent a phone call or a message saying, "Hey, I've got three accomplices to come and pick up this thing, this Pokeball." Um, which to me says that Ivy doesn't communicate with these three little girls, because
No.
none of them say, "Oh, you must be here to pick up the Pokeball." Who are you? Which again is fair because they just let themselves in, assumedly, but that's on her for letting the door. I don't know. I could talk myself in knots. Um, and one of them was like, "Oh, she's out by the bay, working with the Pokemon. We can take you." And um, like, oh boy, they talk in unison. And Pikachu's like, "Well, that fucking hurt." Um, and they go out to the shore, and the waves are crashing, and they look, and all of a sudden this Gyarados comes up, and
and scares the crap out of everyone.
but then all of a sudden Brock goes, "Ooh," and we see that there's a woman is like you know in the water playing with this Gyarados, and what's it called? A cloister pops up, and what looks like a Poliwrath, and she's like, "Y'all are getting stronger every day," and Brock is just he's getting immediately
He can't
well,
contain himself.
to be fair, Ash has kind of got the same dumbstruck look. Um, and but I
Did
think
you did
Ash is
you
more,
see the breastises on this Professor Ivy? The way that they sexed her up for this episode, like Jesus.
I didn't think about that because she's a cartoon.
But then no, they I know she's a cartoon, but they sexed her up in this
Mhm.
show.
But it's kind of funny because Brock and Ash kind of have the same dumbstruck look, but Ash is more impressed at the way that she's trained the Gyarados, and he's like, "I wish I could train my Charizard like that." Um, and Jesus Christ, this completely skipped me on the first watch. And Brock, he can't contain himself. He's like, "I wish she would train me."
Okay. So Doug, just for a brief moment, we're gonna take a quick pause. So I mean, you know what happens in the future. You know that Brock ends up staying with Professor Ivy and all this because he's gonna stay with him because Professor Ivy's not a very organized person. But then later on when we see Brock again, he's like, "Yeah, we don't talk about Professor Ivy." He's like, "That name." And something happened on that island, and she scarred him for life.
He tried to get it in, and she's like, "No, because you're only 15."
she she has a sex dungeon somewhere inside of that home and just scared the mess out of Brock. What is this?
Come on, he'd be into it.
I don't think so. I think she's a little too much work and way too mature for little old Brock over here.
He'd learn on the job.
Oh man.
So yeah, I wish he would train me, and um, that line is immediately undercut by the little girls popping in front and saying, "Hey, Professor, these trainers are here to meet you." And she's like, "Ah," and she rides the Gyarados to the shoreline, and she jumps off, and one of the girls throws her lab coat, and she lands. She's just, yeah, I see it.
Okay, so I'm not the only one, right?
Because
What?
it's not so much, it's the eyes.
The eyes, Doug.
It's the eyes.
The
She's
the
got fuck
eyes.
me eyes.
The eyes. That's what you see when you pause the frame right there. So you don't see a very like sexed up um Professor Ivy.
Oh, I see a confident professional woman.
There's rumors out there that Professor Ivy is transgender. And that
Okay,
and that's what ended up fucking up Brock.
that's fucked up. That's
But
horrible.
no, but there's like a whole like there's subreddits specifically for this part of the storyline where people make assumptions, and one of the big ones is she's a man, or she
Well,
used to be a she used to be
people people are cracked in the head,
a.
and
You explain Brock getting scarred and hiding under a rock every single time Professor Ivy's name is said.
he tried to get it in, and she shot him down because he's 15. I'm telling you,
But he's been shot down by many more. Like what was so significant about this one that put him in his little hole?
he was he was on an island with her. He couldn't get away, so he had to like swallow it.
All
Because
right.
like every other girl, like um the freaking the chick with the vial plume, where he was like he thought he was gonna stay and fall in love with her, and um she was really in love with the dude. They were leaving,
Yeah.
so he's like, I don't have to think about her, but he sacrificed the journey to stay where he felt like he would be useful. And he got too comfortable in his surroundings, and he tried to get it in, and she's like, "No, you're a child. Stop it."
Okay. Okay. If that's what you wanna if that's how you
Well,
wanna say it. I'm just messing with you, bro. We can continue the episode. I'm just fucking with you.
because the other way is so wrong, and it's not like her being transgender doesn't matter one flip to
No,
me
no.
one way or the other. It's
Honestly,
just the
I
fact.
I wish they would introduce her later on in Pokemon Journeys as a male or a transgender character, because I mean that would just show the advancement that Pokemon has. Like they have love for everybody.
Well, and Reddit can be a fucked up place.
just a little bit. So
So she lands and puts on her lab coat, and she's like, "Please, it's nice to meet you. I'm Professor Ivy," and Brock is just immediately just blah, and um, then we're in the lab, and we see the aforementioned mysterious Pokeball, and it's a gold fella. It's gold on top and it's silver on the bottom, and
You
there's little.
This storyline bugs me, bro, because not only do we not get a conclusion to this, I mean, no, I mean, yeah, people are listening to this and they're like, okay, so we're gonna find out what this is, but we never find out about this damn Pokeball ever. We don't
You know,
find out what's inside.
I was gonna ask you once we got off because I wasn't gonna bring it up on the show just in case it was relevant. I was gonna ask you because I don't remember. I remembered that this was a GS ball, but I was like, do we ever find out? And I guess not.
No, I mean, we are in Pokemon Journeys, and we are um like putting caps on a lot of loose ends and stuff. I mean, there's a chance that we put a cap on this and we finally open up that GS ball. But yeah, we have no idea what's in it. You know what? It would be so cool if Go from Pokemon Journeys gets this ball and he's the one that's able to open it. And on the inside of this ball is Mew, the Pokemon that he is trying to capture. Oh, he might get. Okay, okay. I'm putting too much out there. I'm putting too much out
It's
there.
not
Uh,
bad.
that's not bad.
And so we're kind of looking at it, and we see they're like, oh, it seems like there's some writing on it, and zooms in, and it looks like it's GS, and Ash is like, interesting,
Wonder
and
what that stands for. Even though they just said, why is the ball gold and silver?
shush, shush, and they're like, so we decided to call it a GS ball because we're not very bright, and they said, well, you can't transport it, and they go over and they hit the button that we use to transport items in Pokemon, and nothing. And it's still there, and everybody's like, oh, it's still there. And they say, we've even tried everything to open it, jackhammers and saws and crowbars and hacksaws, power drills and lasers. And I'm sitting there at lasers. I kind of threw my hands up. I was like, really, lasers?
Well, they do have Wi-Fi in the year 2000, or in Japanese. This was in 1999, so they do have Wi-Fi in 1999, Doug. So I mean, they do have
I suppose.
lasers. Broaden your imagination, bro.
And so we tried everything, and um, like
so
and we're kind of stuck. And Ash is
so
like, hmm.
and then they're like, yeah. So Ash looks over at the Pokeball and Pikachu and Togepi, which she has it under a glass. Well, I guess for security reasons, they don't want
Right.
anybody stealing this thing. But it opens up. It startles Pikachu and Togepi, who are looking through the glass at this ball, and Professor Ivy goes and picks it up, and she's like, "The secrets of this Pokeball myself are mysterious, but if anyone can solve its mysteries, it's your friend Professor Oak." And she hands Ash the ball. She's like, "Here it is, Ash. Make sure you get it to him safely." And Ash grabs the ball and he's like, "Right." It would have been something, and I mean, all it took would be like 2 or 3 seconds. But all they really had to do at this point to differentiate this ball from like any other ball would be to be like, man, this ball's kind of heavy or something like that. Like it's solid gold. Like
Right.
but he grabbed the ball as if it weighs just as much as a regular Pokeball, and it might.
And well, no, but I think you're right. I think it's solid gold on top and it's silver on the bottom. That has to weigh more than a regular ball. Just logically, that's what it dictates. But
Yeah.
he just kind of picks it up, and he immediately calls Professor Oak, I think, is kind of a proof of completion kind of thing. And he's like, got something for you. And he holds it up, and Oak's like, ah, that must be the mysterious Pokeball. And he's like, that's a GS ball. And
What
Oak's
what
like, a
what was he
GS ball.
doing to that Magikarp at the beginning of the scene?
What was he doing to that magic carp?
He had a bunch of he had like six
Oh,
wires attached to freaking Magikarp inside of a tank right before his
he is
phone rang.
he is monitoring brainwaves.
Oh, okay. I'll take that because I was about to go down a
And
whole nother way. I was
I'm
like,
sure you were.
I was about to
Um,
say, I was like, so which one of these Magikarp can I eat?
so well, we've established that they're very tough, remember?
They are, but I'm
J-
sure at some point you can eat a Magikarp. Just saying.
James broke his teeth on him.
No, Meowth did.
Oh, that's right. Um, and so Oak's like, "What's a GS ball?" And Professor Ivy comes on screen, and she's like, "I came up with the name Professor," and like, "Oh, Professor Ivy, it's so nice to see you." And they and they kind of gush over reports that each one of them have put in magazines recently, and I really don't feel like going over the effort. I mean, it's very technical. If you want to hear it yourself, watch the
Poke,
damn.
Pokemon Researchers Monthly on Pokemon adaptive variations as a function. Oh, what? Or no, she said found it quite persuasive.
Well, anyway, they get really in the weeds, and Ash is kind of all of us. And he's like, "Is this going to take much longer?" And
And she's like, sorry, I get carried away sometimes.
and she's like, "I certainly hope you can solve the mystery of the Pokeball, Professor." And Oak kind of puts his hand on his head, and he's like, "I'll see what I can do." And
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 Ash is like,
you know,
we'll see you soon, Professor Oak. Take care. Bye. Thank you. And Professor Oak is like, man, how terribly interesting. And then we go back
and
over to Magikarp, who has these bugs on him. And he's like, Magikarp, 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 Magikarp. And then we're over
and
with Team Rocket.
yeah, Magikarp's mouth going Magikarp turns into Meowth going huh huh huh, and um and we pan over and we see Team Rocket is staring at the wrecked blimp, and
From last week's
it's
episode.
a it's junk, it's you know we're fucked basically. Um and James is like, I guess we should have gotten the flight insurance, which and Meow
It's like, the boss is going to hate us again.
immediately just collapses and starts crying, and you know and Jesse.
Jesse comes right over with a fucking wrench and just whacks both of them in the head and is like, quit blubbering and let's get to work and fix this thing. And James,
No,
like, he's, what's up?
that's a concussion, is what that is.
I know. And James, like, he's like, but Jesse, I don't know the first thing about work. Bum
And she's like, "Are you telling me you're not going to work?" And they're like, "No, we're not going to work. We'll work. Because you got a wrench and you're scary." Um,
You already hit us.
and she's like, "You realize that the twerp and his friends have to get back. They have a round trip. We've got another shot at this." And that's when James comes to the realization, and then we flash, and James and Meowth also have work suits on, and they're like, "Let's get to work," and they go charging towards the blimp, and then we're back on the island with Professor Ivy in her laboratory. No little girls,
Just the four of them.
just the four of them, and
It looks like they're well at this point because it seems like Professor Ivy and Professor Oak both have very big land because it looks like they're in the backyard, like in like a little forest. But Professor Ivy talks to Brock and she's like, "We breed and study so many Pokemon over here," and Brock's like, "Oh, ooh." And Misty walks over to smell the flowers, and she's like, "Just look at all of these gigantic flowers." And she goes in and she sniffs, and all of a sudden we get a Vileplume, and then this Vileplume looks different. It has different petals on its head that look like big round circles, and it's orange on top instead of red. And Misty is like, Vileplume? And Ash is like, that's a Vileplume, but it looks different than the one that's here in my Pokédex. And
And it's at this point that two of the girls come running in, and they've got a big like serving cart of food, and Brock's like, "Ah, you must make all the food yourself." And Ivy's like, "Yes, we've we've created recipes for each type of Pokemon." And see some pears come out, and they've got some different markings. You see a bright red or bright pink and bright blue Nidoran and Nidorino. Um,
we have a tan um
Victory
Raticate,
Bell.
Vic, yeah, Victory Bell, and a tan Raticate that comes out of the bush. And Ash is like, he's like, all of these Pokemon look a bit different than the ones that's over by me. And she's like, if you, Professor Ivy's like, it's not surprising, really. And Brock's like, it's not. And Professor Ivy then goes on to explain that the Pokemon on this island they basically eat different foods, and the sun is um so strong on this island that the Pokemon here just end up looking different. And she says naturally a different environment creates differences in the Pokemon that are raised there. Doug?
And she basically alludes to the fact that her primary research is how how the different environment that these Pokemon are being raised in causes the variations that we're seeing. And um and Brock is like astounded. He's like, "You don't mean that you bred and raised all these Pokemon on the island, do you?" And she's like, "Yes, I've dedicated my life to them, and I couldn't be happier, quite frankly." And Brock just kind of has a moment, and we see one of the girls flinging some food out, and Gyarados is jumping in the sun, and Ivy's got the fuck me eyes again, and Brock's just and Misty's like, "I would love to see the different types of water Pokemon you've got around here." And Ash says, "I wonder if there's a island version of Pikachu." And we pan over and we see Togepi and Pikachu are kind of chowing down, and they're like, "Hey, that's not yours. You put that back." And Ivy's like, "Oh, don't worry. There's plenty to go around."
For
And
real. Like, Ash, stop being greedy. You see all the other Pokemon, they're not just gonna give those Pokemon food and not yours.
one
And
of the little
oh,
girls comes over and is like, "Professor Ivy, you need to look at this." And we see a Butterfree with different markings on its wings, kind of clinging onto a branch.
yeah, this is the
Uh,
first glimpse of a different type of, I mean, this is the third glimpse of a different type of Butterfree. We have the regular, we have the pink one, which we found out later on that that's a shiny Butterfree, and then this one with the weird markings on its wings, and it's kind of like yellow and off white, like kind of mustard type um coloring on its wings. Am I kind of hitting that right, Doug?
yeah. I mean, you definitely hit the off white. I could see a dark type of mustard for sure, and it's got a little bit of red and some black, and we find out that this particular Butterfree hasn't eaten in
Days.
a couple of days. And she's like, we don't know what to do. We've tried, all these different types of recipes, and nothing
Be
seems to
working.
be. And she's kind of checking her notes, and she's got a bowl of food in her other hand, and
And
Brock reaches over and takes a what you call it,
a big old bite of the food.
yeah, a hunk of kibble is what I was looking for, and he's like, I think I might know what to. And he's like, I've got it, and he he runs off, and he's like, I'll be right back, and
He goes into the forest and finds a bunch of like plants and stuff and kind of mixes his own formula. And he explains to Professor Ivy at this point, the most important thing isn't how nutritious the Pokemon food is. He's like, they care about the taste. He's like, Pokemon like food that tastes good to them. So Professor Ivy's like, well, flavor is a factor, I guess. But how can you determine what flavors each Pokemon likes? And he's
like
like,
by
oh,
tasting it.
he's like, only from experience. Okay, it's ready. And he takes some sprinkles and he puts it on the Pokemon's food, and Butterfree immediately smells it, flies over, dips down, and just starts eating like it hasn't eaten in days because it hasn't. And
And Brock's like, I through my research, I found out that Butterfree like sweet things. So if you crush up some berries and put it on their food,
they'll eat it up
they'll.
every time.
And Ivy's like, I feel embarrassed. She's like, I call myself a Pokemon researcher, and clearly you're the one that knows a lot about Pokemon feeding habits. And Ash is like, Brock knows a lot about Pokemon, Professor. He wants to be one of the best breeders around. And Brock's like, well, gee, see, I'm very a boner. And
And she's like, ah, a breeder, huh? And then her, I'm guessing these are her daughters.
I,
Eh,
I, I was saying daughters or nieces at the
yeah,
very.
and they're jumping up and down right in front of Brock, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, can you please teach us the different flavors the Pokemon like in their food?" And they're just jumping up and down, and they're like,
Now
"Please, Brock, will you please?"
this is something I just picked up. I didn't pick it up on first watch.
Okay,
These girls are very tall.
yeah, they are.
I think they're older than I was giving them credit for. At least I hope they are.
Well,
'Cause,
they're
I
they're
mean,
they're they're just as tall as Ash, but they're not as tall as Brock. Brock is still taller than them.
no, they're like up to his shoulders.
Yeah.
So I would say they're at least 10. But on first glance, when I was first watching it, my initial instinct was like 7 or 8.
Oh no, yeah, they have to be up there with Ash and Misty at least.
And the two of them are like, could you show us? And one of them comes up and is like, hey guys, come on, we got to decide, who's stuck cooking dinner tonight and all this. And Brock immediately like snaps to attention. He's like, cooking, and
He's like,
we get
huh?
we get we get who's that Pokemon, and it's Lapras, which considering what next week's episode is, I guess I can accept, but I'm kind of used to Black and White being like episode specific, and I'm back to Kanto being like an episode ahead of itself.
Yes. So
So
so we go and we get the who's that Pokemon, and it's Lapras, and I'll take it because Lapras is the main star of next week's episode. But then after the who's that Pokemon, we come back and we're immediately inside of Professor Ivy's home. And this home is a mess. There's dishes that haven't been done. There's clothing and underwear all over the place. I mean, for God's sakes, the women left their bras hanging on the washing machine and in the sink and on the cabinet. And it's a mess. And the dishes look freaking horrible. And Brock is sitting there and he's like, well, yeah. And Misty's like, this is a nice place. And
And
the women see nothing wrong with this picture. Let me just throw that out there.
well, and Ivy's like, we got so wrapped up in all the Pokemon research and what have you. Stuff starts falling through the cracks, and then it just got easier, and we just started calling it. And the girls in unison are like, "Our little dump." And like you said, they're happier than pigs and shit, probably literally. And Ash has got like this forced smile. He's like, "Dumps are usually nicer," and Brock is like trying to hold it in, and he just can't, and he just explodes. And
He's
he's
like,
like,
floors to be swept, cooking, mopping, polishing, cleaning. And he puts on his cleaning gear. He's like, this is just like at home. Leave it to Super Brock. And then he just goes on a rampage cleaning this place within minutes.
and he's just, he's going in hyperdrive, and you know, they're like, Brock's really over the place, and he's polishing, he's cooking, he's cleaning, and Ash is like, he's doing it all for free, and Pikachu's jumping up and down, having a gay old time, and we flash, and the house is literally sparkling, and there's a big feast on the table, and Professor Ivy's got a knife and a fork and a napkin tucked in her shirt, and she's like, "Let's thank Brock," and all the girls are like, "Later, let's eat," and there's just hum 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 hum, and
the only time Professor Ivy's cleavage is hidden, and it's by a napkin.
you stop it, and the girls are housing all this food, and um, Ash looks at Misty and goes, "The Pokemon chew quieter than this," and um. Brock is he's sitting back, he's beaming, he's like, "This is just like my family." Pikachu and Togepi are chowing, um and then we cut to nighttime, and Pikachu and Ash are knocked out, and Misty and Togepi are sleeping. Togepi's in its egg, and we're
Outside, we
seeing
have a whole bunch of Bioplume just walking around, and Professor Ivy's getting all of it on video because she's doing it for her study. And
and
Brock
Brock
shows
walks
up.
up, and he's got like midnight donuts, and he's like, "I thought you would like a midnight snack," and um we find out that this is a ritual that Vileplume do to ward off other Pokemon from their habitat, and
They're
um,
they're
you know,
they're they're spraying out their pollen.
yes. But then the Raticate that we saw briefly earlier comes into the area, and it starts to get affected by the pollen, and Professor Ivy jumps up without even
Thinking.
thinking and grabs the Raticate and gets it out of the area and collapses, and
And Brock
uh,
gets a tissue out of his pocket, runs through the pollen so he doesn't get paralyzed as well. And he's like, Professor, are you okay? And Professor Ivy can barely move at this point, and she's like, save the Raticate. And
and
Raticate is kind of like sneezing, and she's like, contact the Pokemon Center immediately. And both of the girls are like, yes, ma'am. And then Ash and Misty get woken up from all of this, and they are just mad that they that they are. I mean, just be happy you're not in school, Ash. But Ash gets woken up, and Pikachu's on his shoulder, just knocked out of sleep. She has Togepi, which I think they could have left Pikachu and Togepi in the beds, and Misty and Ash just woke up. But they're like, yeah, I'm glad they woke us up. Good thing we didn't sleep through all of this. And
I mean, they literally must have grabbed Misty because Misty didn't even have time to put on her suspenders.
I know. And
And
they're like, Professor Ivy, you should know, or Nurse Joy's like, you should know how dangerous it is to jump in front of a Vileplume when they're spraying their pollen like that. And she's like, I know, but how is the Raticate? And she's like, because you got it away from the pollen so fast, it's gonna make a full recovery. And Raticate's like, just snoring away. And Professor Ivy just lays down and just passes out and goes to sleep. And she's like, and the girls come and she's like, we were so worried about you. And she just opens her eyes. She's like, I didn't mean to scare you girls. And they're like, please don't do something like that again. And Brock is kind of like reminiscing about his brothers and sisters. And he's just smiling and just looking on and on. And the girls are giggling. And then now it's morning. And we have a
Yeah.
Paris getting coconut out of the tree. And then Doug, if you want to take this part.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm glad you noticed the Paris because I was definitely going to make note of that because I thought it was kind of cute. Um, and yeah, so we see it's bright and early. Everybody's happy because they must have been able to go back to sleep. And Ash is like, "Well, we got to be hitting that old dusty trail. We got to get that GS ball to Professor Oak." And she's like, "It was nice meeting you. You can all come back anytime." And we're like, "Wait a minute, there was a third fellow with us," and all of a sudden the house starts to shake,
And then
and
you
we
see
see
Onyx and Brock
come
with
by.
Geodude with a bunch of lumber. And I'm at this point, I'm watching this as a kid, and I'm like, uh oh, we're about to get rid of one of my favorite characters in this show. No, no, Doug.
So Brock is up on the roof, hammering in some nails. Looks like he's patching a hole, and Professor Ivy, no pun intended, kind of hits the nail on the head and says, "Well, it appears that Brock has decided to stay with us." And um, you know, Brock's like he looks back and he says, "I don't think that roof is going to leak anymore." And Ivy's like, "That's wonderful." The girls are like, "He's great." And they're like, "It's like we were adrift at sea until Brock came along." I hated this.
Yeah, Brock looks right up. He's like, this ship needs a captain. And then it,
I hated this.
and the wind's hitting him. His Zubat flies right by. The wind's gusting as if he's on an actual boat, but he's on top of the house. And Pikachu's like, Pika. And Brock's like, if I stay here, I'll get to learn more and more about Pokemon every day. And then here comes the Butterfree that he's become friends with. Ash should be kind of jealous because he had to get rid of his Butterfree. And Brock's like, he's like, and I think these guys may need me a lot more than you guys do. And Ash is like,
hated
well,
this.
you're the one that cooks for us. He's like, how are we gonna eat if you leave?
You know what this is, right?
What?
This is this is Brock saying, "I must stay and help these women, for I am man, and these women are helpless."
Yes, yes. I
This is
mean,
bullshit.
but you. Well, I'll go over at the end of the episode. But you remember why this is happening the way it's happening, right?
I, I, if I have, I haven't caught it.
Okay. So I'll go over it at the very end of this episode. And Ash is like, well, I guess this is goodbye then. Goodbye, friend. And Brock's like, friends to the end, right? And he's like, right. And Pikachu's over here dancing back and forth. And then they go and they say their own goodbyes. And Brock's like, just make sure you won't forget me, will you? And Ash is like, how can we forget you? You're the only one that makes us food. I'm about to get skinny now. And then all of Brock's Pokemon, his Vulpix, Onix, and Geodude, Zubat, they're all waving goodbye as well. And Brock's like, see you guys later. And then we go and we're immediately back with just Ash and Misty, how we started the Pokemon adventure in the Kanto region. And they're like, it's gonna be really weird not having Brock around with us. And Ash's like, yeah, no, I wish he was coming back to with us. But now that you mention it, How are we gonna get back? And and Ash is like, no problem. I have our blimp tickets right here. And Missy's like, but we can't go back on that blimp. It's destroyed. And Ash is like, yeah. And the food was bad and they didn't show a movie.
I did laugh out loud at that. I'm not gonna lie.
And Ash is like, ah, all right. So they all look up and they see a brand new blimp. So Team Rocket has officially fixed the blimp that was destroyed before. And Jesse and James pop up and they're like, checking any luggage? And this is flight 001, the maiden voyage if the is the most incredible to ever sail the seven skies. And Ash's like, are you sure this is safe? Because he
This line got me. I was on the floor here because Ash is like, "Is are you sure this thing is safe?" And James is pushing from behind. He goes, "It's safe enough, kid. Are you trying to live forever? What the hell?"
All right, Doug, if you want to go over the next part in this scene.
So they're pushing, and the ramp closes, and um, we get Jessie, and she's on like the comm system, and she says, "Prepare for takeoff." And Meowth in his little captain's uniform is like, "Preparing takeoff," and pushes up, and we see Jigglypuff um gets kind of blown away by the propeller, and the ship goes up, and it's gracefully floating over the cliff, and we see that Jigglypuff was able to grab onto the wing, not the wing. Well, yeah, like the wing on top of the plane, the
Yes.
fin, I guess. And Ash is like, "Hey, where's our food?
We're
We're hungry
hungry
here."
here. I laughed at that because he's like, well, damn it. He's like, we didn't get food on the first blimp. We're going to get food on this one.
And they're like, "Oh, you're hungry, are you?" And they're like, we hope you like candy." And Meowth pops up, and he's like, "As in bars," and he hits a button, and a cage drops down in front of the seats, and they do their little motto, and Ash is like, "God damn it, it's Team Rocket, son of a bitch."
He's like, it's them. And then Team Rocket goes through and they do their motto and they actually get through the whole model. And then you got Misty like, why won't you guys just leave us alone? And freaking Jesse is like, we'll leave you alone when and then they're like, wait, hey, where's the other twerp that hangs out with you too? And they're like, huh, oh, you mean Brock. So you forgot him already. And James is like, Jesse, I think we've actually accidentally captured a pair of very romantic creatures in our little cage. And she's like, oh, you mean they're lovebirds? And Meowth just jumps up and Ash and Misty look at each other and they're like, you're crazy. And Misty's like, crazy is right. Never in a million years. And they Jesse points at them and they're like, but they're blushing. And Meowth is having a cat on the floor. He's just like, this is so funny. He's like, kissy, kissy, kissy. And Ash like, it's not true. Pikachu, use your thunderbolt. And Pikachu is like, Pika, and he's like, hold it. This blimp is a giant flame, flying inflamed gas tank. This blimp is a giant flying inflammable gas tank. There you go. And they're like, if you use your electric powers on here, we're all going to die. Doug?
And so Pikachu's like, "Oh shit, he's got a point." And Meowth's like, "All right, Romeo, time to hand over that Pikachu." And come on, let's go, come on. And Ash is like, "Son of a fuck." And then who pops out of nowhere other than Jigglypuff? And she does a little bow, and they're like, "Oh shit, Jigglypuff!" And it starts to sing, and Everybody
Jigglypuff, Jigglypuff.
everybody starts to kind of wobble on their feet. Team Rocket has enough wherewithal to put on parachute packs, and they freaking fly out of the door. The door flies off its hinges. Um, we
And,
get
and
looks like Team Rocket's
Jigglypuff goes with them.
and we get a sleepy Team Rocket saying, "Looks like Team Rocket's drifting off again." And like you said, Jigglypuff is riding the
Parachute.
parachute down, and pardon me, we get the narrator comes in as we see Ash and Pikachu are asleep on the floor. Misty's asleep in her chair holding Togepi, who is folded in on itself.
And the narrator's
And
like, while our friends have drifted into dreamland, they're also drifting into danger. Where will their giant airship take them? And can they survive the flight? Find out next time on Pokemon. To be
then we
continued.
get the to be continued. Um, I would be very interested to see the gap between this episode and the next one because obviously, as we've touched on, next episode is also the debut of the Orange Islands theme song.
Yes.
So I would imagine they weren't back next week.
Um, that's a good question. I can actually pull that up right now. I think they did take a few weeks off. Let's see. All right. Pokemon episode
They
list.
wouldn't.
So right here. So no, they were back the following week. Yeah.
Oh, that's dumb. That's dumb.
Yep. The Lost Lapras 7 days later.
You got it. That's a big cliffhanger. That's wait a couple
And
months
and then they took a 2 week break for until they brought in the next episode.
because they couldn't leave the
After
kids
the
hanging.
lost yeah, after the Lost Lapras.
They're like,
So
all right, you know you survived. You know we're getting new shit because we've got a new theme song. We don't have Brock. You know everybody's safe. Now we can take a break.
so but yeah, that's it. That you know, rewatching this episode was not as bad as watching it the first time and reviewing it this time. Do you agree, Doug?
Well, like I say, I always get a little bit more enjoyment out of reviewing these episodes than I do just watching them on first pass.
Yeah.
Because I said, before we got on here, I said these were two nothing episodes. And I maintain that. I mean, you know, Grant pointed out last week that it wasn't really a filler episode because we did have an A to B. I mean, they did end up on the Orange Island.
Yeah.
And, there was obviously a huge development with Brock staying behind. But still kind of, and I mean, yeah, they zhuzhed, they zhuzhed it up a little bit with the cliffhanger of, you know, what's going to happen. Team Rocket's gone and Misty and Ash are asleep in the ship. But I just feel like they missed an opportunity of not taking a month because, this is 2000, so it's not like you can jump on and say, "Oh, they'll be fine next week."
You uh
You
you you want to know something funny, bro? So
what's that?
a fun fact. So we get one episode um the following week, and then they take a 2 week break, and then on February 5th they premiere 3 episodes in the same day. You get Fit to Be Tied, Pikachu Revolts, and the Crystal Onyx all in one day.
Jesus.
Yeah. And then you got one more episode called In the Pink for February 12th, and then you don't get another episode. Oh no, never mind. You get 2 episodes the following week, but It looks like Shell Shock. And I'm gonna have to do a little bit of digging, but that premiered on March 4th, but it premiered out of order.
Mm.
Yeah. So I'm gonna do some digging on that because it looks like for the next couple weeks, they were premiering a bunch of episodes together, to kind of catch up to the Japanese um air dates or whatnot. But all right, but what would you give this week's episode? Pokeball Peril.
What did I give last week? 2.5.
Yep.
I mean, this is probably. I mean, this is probably a 3.5, if nothing else. You did have the cliffhanger ending.
Yeah.
Brock staying behind was a huge development.
I'm going to give this myself about a three, a solid three, only because I know next week, well, not, well, next week is going to be a black and white episode, but the episode that we're doing next for the Orange Islands, which will be the Lost Lapras, I believe, and I haven't rewatched it yet, but I believe that episode is better than this episode. And
Okay.
I think that one might get the bump up to about a 3.5, maybe a 4, if I remember the episode correctly. But you guys will have to wait 2 weeks for that. Uh for for that. But if you're listening to this on the free feed though, if you go on our Patreon, 1 week from today, you'll be able to listen to the next episode of the Orange Island. So go up on there and become a Patreon and listen to episodes a week in advance, and you get your specials a month in advance. But it is now time, Doug, for me to open the Sword and Shield Fusion Strike Pack that I have right here in front of me. So let's go ahead and open this up. All right. Do my card trick. Doug, what card am I about to look at? Think of all the different types.
Well, let's see. Last week was
Last week
like
was lightning.
yes. So I'm gonna say fire.
Fire? Okay. It's psychic.
Ah, fuck.
So so I got a psychic energy. I got a chili, silent, and crest card. I have a Copperaja. I think that's how you pronounce it. A Zoroark, a Pansear, a Gumi, an Aracuda, a Snubble, a Geodude. My reverse holo is an Electric. And, ooh, fucking right. I have a full art Gengar VMAX card. Full blown
nice.
shiny. Yes. This is good. That is awesome. I knew it was gonna be something good because I kept seeing something shiny as I was going through these. That's nice. That's a really shiny card. Holy crap. See, that's what a shiny. What's up?
I said that's a solid pull.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's really, it's actually hurting my eyes because I got lights right above me and I'm looking at it and it's like blinding me. It's like really, really shiny. And this week's Pokemon trading card game live code for you is DRB NXCT CDH DNJ. And that is this week's Pokemon trading card game live code. First come, first serve. Good luck to all of you out there. Do you have anything else that you would like to add, Doug?
Do not believe so.
All right. Well, if that's it, well, say your goodbye, Doug.
Bye, Doug.
And this is Wrestling Chris G telling all of you we will be back next week with a black and white episode for you. Have a good night, everybody, and see you next week.